Please welcome Gwendolyn Regina.
Thank you so much, Seedstars. Thank you, Alizi and AG. Thanks for doing that introduction. So is it 13:57? Because yesterday when I asked the Seedstars people what time my talk is, they were like, you need to be on stage by 13:57, which is to me is like Swiss precision, like #1. So today I'm going to talk about Asia. So my title is Finding Structure in Chaos, because what is Asia? Asia is at once this shiny, glitzy thing, as well as this messy, rural area. So this was a picture that I personally took when I was in India for a business trip. So why Asia? Just now we heard about some stuff from Alizi already, but Asia makes up 60% of the world's population. So in the next 9 minutes left, I'm going to try to summarize, and hopefully I'll try to do justice to the region. We have 4.5 billion people. And again, as mentioned before, last year we received $71 billion of VC investment, almost eclipsing the US in the VC market with just half as many deals. And also, we already make up the majority of global middle-class spending, and this majority lead is just projected to grow even further. Asia is super complex. It's chaotic, full of paradoxes. This slide is a bit screwed up with the font, but we have many, many different countries and languages. So this is a picture of the many different scripts and languages in India, with like Chinese on the top right and Burmese on the right. I think some Arabic as well. I don't know, because I don't understand the languages. I don't know if you can tell the difference. So a little bit background myself to add on from what AG kind of said. So I've been in the Asia tech scene for about 13 years. Since I was in college. I started blogging about the Southeast Asia specifically, tech scene back in 2005, which again I later sold to a wider regional play, Tech in Asia. And I also started investing about 11 years ago in early stage tech startup investments. I still do angel investment today. And I spearheaded Mashable's launch in Asia Pacific about 2 years ago. And most recently, I'm also a ERR at Entrepreneurship, which is a London deep tech incubator. So how do we navigate this Asia chaos? First, we live in many different online spaces. So this is actual screenshots of the chat apps on my phone. So it'll be stuff you see that'll be familiar to all of you, WhatsApp, Messenger, Twitter, and some stuff that you may have heard, maybe not used, and maybe haven't heard before, like Wechat, Viber, Line. So just to highlight a few of the apps, these apps have significant Asia penetration. Wechat, again, as all of us know. So China has 1.4 billion people, of which 1.1 billion of them are registered users, of which 1 billion use Wechat monthly. Each day, they spend up to 4 hours a day on Wechat. Line has 600 million users, with about a third of them monthly actives, and it's one of the top chat apps in Japan, Taiwan, Thailand, Indonesia. And Viber, originally from Cyprus, acquired by Japan's e-commerce company Rakuten, and about 1/3 are monthly actives. Again, one of the top chat apps in Philippines and Myanmar. Personal example, when I was leading Mashable into Asia, again, it's about realizing where your target audience lives, right? And living in different online spaces, what does that mean? Means that we have to be on Wechat, and we have to be on Viber. So what's interesting here is that obviously you see Wechat is in Chinese. But Viber, we use English because Philippines' 100 million population spread out across many different islands with many different languages, but it's not really Tagalog that unifies the entire country. So this is something that people outside, maybe Asia, don't really know, is that English is actually a unifier. It's a language that different Filipinos from different parts of the country use to communicate with each other. So we entered Philippines using Viber and in English. So the second thing about how to navigate the chaos is that understand that every day it's very different. Personal example. Texting Chinese is slow, and I'm going to prove it to you. This is what I have to do when I want to type out one character. So hao means good in Chinese. And in romanized Latin alphabet, it's HAO, right? So I have to type it in, that's the first step. And then the keyboard presents to me this page, rows and columns of different characters that all correspond to the same Latin alphabet. So the second step is actually scrolling through and finding out and choosing the correct character. Of course, it's ranked by frequency, so like good is the first character there. But it's a two-step process. So what do the Chinese do? Instead of texting, they use voice messaging. And this is very, very, very common in mainland China. Another everyday that's very different in many parts of Asia, especially China, is mobile payments. More than 500 million people use mobile payments daily. They've been using it to pay their lattes for years, as well as buying groceries. I'm pretty sure these are tourists trying it out, but I don't think I should be that judgmental. They may be Chinese. And also, they use QR codes for beggars. Beggars use QR codes to get donations or to get money. So a beggar can make up to 400 RMB, which is $63 daily. A fresh graduate makes 4,000 RMB in a month. So a beggar can make what a fresh grad does in just 10 days. The everyday is superbly different. Yet cash is still preferred in many other parts of Asia. So for example, this is a screenshot I did, Amazon in India, and cash on delivery is one of the payment methods. These are two graphs showing the e-commerce payment method in Thailand as well as Indonesia. The yellow is cash on delivery, and the blue is credit cards. So again, cash on delivery, the majority of the payment methods. So, but why? Because a lot of India and a lot of Southeast Asia specifically, they're still unbanked, and also it's lack of awareness sometimes. So with that, you have to remember that you have China, which is super QR code mobile payment friendly, and yet cash is still preferred in other parts of Asia. So it's a contradiction, sort of. And so the third point I want to make is that when you enter China, you have to understand the contradictions and find them. So remember voice messaging, right? So again, this is used a lot in mainland China, but the contradiction there is that in Taiwan, they also use Chinese, but they don't use voice messaging. So that's only the young people now starting to use it, and there's a few reasons why. But so why has Taiwan not used voice messaging? And that's still something that we don't really know. So I tried asking some Taiwanese friends, Chinese friends, and actually just researching online. And there's no real consensus of all the reasons. And again, it's a contradiction because some people say that in China, it's way more crowded, so you need to be loud to be heard online, so it's more accepted to speak loudly over your phone and stuff like that. Others say because it's a one-child policy thing, that whole culture, so you're used to being loud to feel like you have friends around you. But no one really agrees, so it's a contradiction. So to kind of conclude sort of the tips, right, to navigate Asia is that, remember, is that you have to know which spaces they live in, go to the online platforms, the chat apps. Remember that the chat apps are not just for chatting. WeChat is the internet for many people. You can play games, watch news, find out your horoscope or whatever. And understand that your everyday, be it in Latin America, Africa, Europe, or wherever, it's maybe similar or different to some parts of the everyday in Asia. And again, find the contradictions. So how about the future? So there's a lot of intra-region investment right now, especially from Chinese giants. They've invested billions and billions of dollars into Southeast Asia specifically, because Southeast Asia, within the Asia region, is one of the most upcoming parts of Asia. So these are just some of the more recent deals. And also another giant, SoftBank in Japan. They have a $100 billion vision fund, of which they deployed quite a lot of money already. And as an example, last year, they invested $4 billion across these 3 companies. Flipkart is e-commerce, Paytm is payments, and Ola is transportation. And we're going to see also way more local Asia winners with very localized operations. To give an example, so as we all know, Uber has been global, and Grab is a Southeast Asian player. But how did Grab win? Because Uber just bowed out and sold their business to Grab. Is that it's not just because they were local, but specifically one reason is mapping. Because Google Maps in certain parts of the world, and especially in certain parts of Southeast Asia, were just not good. So what did Grab do by understanding the local operations? They hired their own mapping team to really make sure the mapping data was great. So now deliveries could, for the food component, would be much more accurate. And the drivers would take you there to your destination way more accurately. And so one thing that Grab also did, for example, was because mapping was a problem, they had their own taxi stand versions. Third point, Asia is leading the way for cryptocurrency adoption. I know that, Switzerland, Zurich, Zug is top of the world as well, but so is Asia. So these are the top 3 most traded currencies for Bitcoin, if we use Bitcoin as a proxy for the general cryptocurrency market. So Japanese yen, Korean won, and the USD are the top 3. And kind of a few points, Singapore, where I'm from, is super crypto-friendly, Hong Kong as well. And Vietnam, specifically, has always had a strength in technical talent, technical and developer talent. And we're already seeing the shift to developing this expertise in blockchain development. And just now I mentioned the chat app. So Lion is one, Kakao is another one, Korean one. They have their own blockchain subsidiaries now. So imagine if they start issuing their own tokens and offering this to their users, to parts of the Asian market. And it is quite friendly to the unbanked, although awareness is still a problem. So yeah, so that is Asia. I've tried my best to summarize. It's not easy. Asia is gigantic. Again, 4.5 billion people. And so a personal example. I moved to Vietnam a few years ago. I lived there for a few months. I was doing some business development there. And when I first got there, I was like, OK, this is the traffic I have to deal with. It's crazy. Motorbikes are everywhere and stuff like that, right? So for me, this is an analogy to Asia. When you first go in, it's like everything is around you. But what I realized, just after a few days, actually, regarding the traffic is that all you really have to do is walk slowly and consistently, and the motorbikes will avoid you. You don't avoid them. So same thing. My analogy here is that for Asia, pick small steps, and you'll figure out your structure. And yeah, thank you very much.